All right. Yo, my name is Dan Smith. I'm the lead minister at Momentum. If it's your first time, welcome. So glad to have you here. We're in the Momentum at the Movies series, which is a tradition every September where we look at usually 4 movies from the last year, starting at this time last year, things that have come out. And we kind of pull out themes out of these movies. We talk about the movies a little bit and then kind of relate it to how can we love God, love people, and make disciples of Jesus who make disciples of Jesus. By round of applause, how many of you have seen F1, the movie? Wow. All right. So, it is a good movie. It's a lot of fun. By the way, I just learned, full disclosure, in the men's room, that on the way into the parking lot, a friend of mine, Jamie Steele, pulled in, and they were like, "What movie is it today?" And she said, "It's that Fee movie." It's mispronounced. It's Phi. No, it's F1 is the name of the movie. So she tried to pronounce the one, y'all. So the main character in the F1, the movie, is Sonny Hayes, and you're going to hear that name a lot. He's played by the homely, the out-of-shape Brad Pitt. So at one time, Sonny Hayes in this film was a prodigy Formula One racer. But his career was brought to an abrupt halt during a horrific crash during an F1 race in the 1993 Spanish Grand Prix. So ever since then, he's been burdened by this, man, I never lived up to my potential. In fact, one character in the movie calls him the greatest who never was. And so he's burdened by this fact, like, I was this young, reckless rookie, and I never really in F1 amounted to anything. And so he spends the rest of his time up to this movie, the last 3 decades, as a racer for hire. Any way he can race, because he loves racing, he'll get in on it, but then he'll just move on to the next thing. And so he'll race and boom, on to the next one like Jay-Z. He's just all over the place doing different things. So he's raced for NASCAR. He even was a New York City taxi driver for a while just because he likes driving. And so at the very beginning of the movie, he participates in a team that wins the 24 Hours of Daytona, and Sonny is approached by his former racing teammate from back in the day, whose name is Ruben. Ruben is played by the actor Javier Bardem, and there are 2 amazing accents throughout this whole movie. Javier Bardem is one of them, where he says stuff. He could say, "The cat pooped on my carpet," and it sounds so poetic because of his accent. It's so cool. And then there's this woman who's an Irish woman in it who has the coolest Irish accent ever. Anytime she talks, I'm like, that is so cool. So anyways, Ruben, his former teammate, seeks him out. Ruben is now the owner of a struggling Formula One race team. And Ruben asks Sonny, Brad Pitt, to be the team's second driver. He's like, "I need you as my number 2. And so Ruben explains that unless his team wins one of the final 9 Grand Prix in the season, that his investors, his board, will try to sell the team. And he's like, "Man, I'm losing everything. I've lost millions of dollars, and if they sell the team, the team won't be worth these shoes, man. It's like, I really need help." And so here's the rundown of the situation at the beginning of the movie. The team, Ruben's team, is in last place. His best driver, his number 1, just left for another F1 team. The other driver, the number 2 driver, is a rookie who has been promoted to number 1, and there's only 9 races left. And so he says, "I just need one of my cars to finish in the top 10 to get some points. We don't have any points. I need one of my cars to cross the finish line." So in Ruben's recruiting speech, he says to Sonny, Brad Pitt's character, "Some people look at Sonny Hayes and they see a guy who lives in a van, a gambling junkie," although he says it with like 3 syllables, junkie, the way he says with that cool accent. And so they see a gambling junkie who missed his shot, but I see a guy who makes teams better. I see experience. I see know-how. Now, total side note, this is the middle schooler in me, but later they mention that Sonny Hayes' character has had 1 marriage annulled in the last 10 years, and that he's been divorced 2 other times, which is like 3. And I'm like, wait a minute, he mentions that he lives in a van. It's like, this so reminds me of Saturday Night Live's Matt Foley. Are you with me? I'm 35 years old. I am thrice divorced, and I live in a van down by the river, okay? Thank you. You responded much better than the 8 o'clock did to that, and I appreciate, all right? I am a motivational speaker. Okay, so I like you guys so much better than those dull heads in the first service. So anyways, so Reuben then continues, like, so I see experience and know-how in you, and then my rookie, though, he says, my rookie's a phenomenal talent, phenomenal, but he's young, and he lacks maturity. But you plus him, boom, I've got a team. And so he recruits Sonny to come and try out for their team. Meanwhile, that number one driver, the young guy, the rookie, who's just been promoted to number one driver, he's this ambitious, young, arrogant British rookie named Joshua Pierce. And he gets wind that the owner, Reuben, is in trouble and might have to sell the team. So now his mentality is, okay, knowing that some buyers might buy this team and clean house, I might be fired at the end of the season, they might get rid of me. He feels the pressure to look really good. I need to make sure that I attract the attention of others, that I look good, so that I can attract the eye of another F1 team in the future. And his manager, Joshua's manager, tells him, you need to show these people who the number one driver really is, man, now, or you're going to lose your job. And so his manager is pushing him constantly and lecturing him on ways to gain followers through self-promotion. It is about you looking good right now. So when Sonny arrives to try out or audition for Reuben's F1 team, it becomes really obvious right away that the rookie, the young guy, Joshua, is threatened by Sonny's presence, this veteran who shows up. And the two of them just don't like each other, as you see with some of the trash talk in the trailer. And near the end of their first race together, Sonny's first race back at the British Grand Prix, Sonny comes out of a pit stop just ahead of the young guy, Joshua. And so Joshua has been going for a while. Brad Pitt, his character, gets some new tires, at the pit stop. He comes out right in front of him, and they immediately start competing for position. And Sonny's in front of Joshua, young Joshua, and Joshua says, I'm coming for you, old man. And when he can't get around Sonny, he doesn't have the experience to beat him, to get around him, he radios the team, and he says, tell him to let me pass. And so Sonny, is on new cold tires, which, by the way, I don't follow racing. I don't know this stuff at all. But he just got tires, so they're cold tires. And Joshua has he has warm tires, so he's faster right now. And they're like, yeah, he's on faster tires, so he is going to be faster. So Hugh, the race engineer, says, okay, Sonny, no fighting, let him through. And Sonny says, who's fighting? I'm racing. And then eventually they battle for position until they make a little bit of contact, and they both spin out, and they take each other completely out of the race. And both cars are completely demolished. They get a double DNF, which is did not finish, which is the cardinal sin in motor racing. And when both those drivers are back with the whole team, the pit team, and everybody's together, they're kind of facing off about whose fault that was, when a guy named Casper, who's the team principal, basically the guy in charge of the team, calling the shots, he says to Sonny, Brad Pitt's character, he says, in order is an order. May I remind you that you report to me? And Sonny says, cool, just don't ask me to give up position. So this is largely what this, the plot of this movie is based on, is, yeah, it's about Sonny Hayes and his history and all that, but it's also about this dynamic of the young rookie and the old veteran who just don't get along, and they're on a team together, but they're battling one another on that team. And the idea of, in racing, this idea is literally they're jockeying for position. Now, we steal that term or that phrase from racing, whether it's horse racing or car racing. We steal that term, jockeying for position. It's the idea of maneuvering your car or your horse into a better position to win. But that entire sport, of course, is built on getting ahead, crossing the line first, and being the one who gets the victory and the glory. But today, we use that phrase outside of racing, don't we? Jockeying for position. The idea is, I'm maneuvering, I'm manipulating, I'm making moves, and I'm trying to do it for my own benefit. And usually it's indirectly. It's kind of devious. I'm trying to figure out how to manipulate, maneuver, and make moves. And most of us work so hard to get where we're at in life to have the job that we have or to have the family, the respect, whatever it is, that, it is easy to have the attitude of Brad Pitt's character, Sonny Hayes, just don't ask me to give up position. Because I worked really hard to get where I'm at. I worked really hard to have accomplished what I've accomplished. So, turn to Mark chapter 10. You can have a paperback Bible that's under the chair in front of you. Mark chapter 10. You can look that up in the table of contents at the beginning, or you can download the Bible app for free, or Google Mark 10. And we're going to look at that for just a few moments. There's a really relevant story here about 2 of the 12 disciples of Jesus who are brothers, whose names are James and John. And so it says in Mark 10, starting with verse 35, then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, so they're brothers, came to Jesus. Teacher, they said, we want you to do for us whatever we asked. This is very much like, I don't know if you ever did this as a kid, but like, hey, Mom, would you say yes to whatever I'm about to ask you? No. What do you want? That's kind of what the disciples are doing with Jesus here. So, big Jesus, he's like, what do you want me to do for you? He asked. Like, I'm not going to say yes, carte blanche, you can have whatever you want. They replied, let us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory. And then in verse 41, it says, when the other 10 disciples heard about this, they became indignant with James and John. So, what are the brothers doing, first of all, right here? First, they're jockeying for position. And against their own teammates, against the rest of the 10, they're like, hey, we want to sit at the right hand and the left hand of the king, the leader. Whenever you come into your glory, whenever you are king, whenever you do what we think you're about to do, which they think he's going to overthrow the Roman Empire, then we want to sit at your right and your left hand. Now, in Jewish thought, the right hand of the king was the most prominent position next to the king. The left hand of the king was the second most prominent position, which reminds me an awful lot like a podium after an F1 Formula One race, okay? It's the podium. The guy in the middle is the dude. He's the winner, okay? This is number 1. This is number 2. This is number 3 in the finishing. And so what they're doing is they're like, hey, Jesus, we know you're number 1. You're King Jesus. You're the promised Messiah. You're the one who's going to whip the Romans' butts. So all we're asking is when you come into glory, when you're the ruler that we expect you to be, we want to sit at your right and your left hand. And so they're like, we want those prominent positions. And so when the other 10 heard about this, it said they were indignant, and they were like, what is, James and John asked that? Are you kidding me? Now, just in case you're like, man, yeah, the other 10, I understand why they're ticked, man. I mean, these are good, just righteous dudes and all that kind of stuff. No, they're probably mad because they didn't think of it first. The other 10 are like, oh my gosh, that was so freaking smart. I'm so mad they thought of it before I did. Like, why not go to Jesus first? He's like healing people, and like he's Oprah. Find something under your seat right now, everybody. Like, why did we not go and be like, hey, can I sit at your right hand? Can I be your number 1 dude? Sit at your right hand? And so they're like, oh, those idiots. They thought of it first. I bet their mom put them up to this. She actually did. And so, like, oh man, I wish I would have thought of that. So they wanted the positions for themselves. James and John did, and all the 12 disciples were jockeying for position on Team Jesus, okay? That's what the situation is. Then Jesus used this incident as a teachable moment. Mark 10:42, Jesus called them together. He's like, huddle up, guys. Everybody take a knee. Everybody take a knee. I don't think it says that, but take a knee, take a knee. You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles, that's the non-Jews, lord it over them. Their high officials exercise authority over them. So what Jesus is saying there is, one way to lead is very authoritarian. One way to do that is that. It's that having that mindset. That's normal in the Greco-Roman world, Jesus is saying, the time that we're living in right now in the first century. It's all about power. It's all about honor. It's all about control, obedience, subjection. So, and today, the authoritarian word isn't just used from government, for government officials. It's used about business leaders at times, church leaders, coaches, parents. Like they have a very authoritarian, my way's the highway, I say it, you do it kind of mentality. And so Jesus is like, but, verse 43, not so with you. Instead, my disciples, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. So Jesus flips everything upside down. He's like, okay, in my kingdom, the kind of kingdom I'm actually coming to establish on earth, and that is whoever bows the knee to Jesus, whoever in their heart says, Jesus is my king, Jesus is my leader, they're a part of the kingdom of God on earth. And the kingdom of God on earth is an upside-down kingdom. Jesus is like, okay, if you want to be great in my kingdom, you do it the way that I am going to achieve greatness, and that is through servanthood. Like, that's how you do it. And so he insisted that his followers, disciples, Christians, they must not be like the Greco-Roman leaders, but they have to be like slaves, and they have to be like servants. And the Greek word in the original language used for servants there, it originally meant those who wait on tables. So this is very servant-hearted stuff, not I'm first kind of stuff. So he's calling them to humility and service. And beyond that, he steps forward as the main example, Jesus does. He's like, I'm going to show you how all this is done as I already have been. And in verse 45, it's actually the key verse in the entire book of the Gospel of Mark. We just happen to be on it today. Mark 10:45, Jesus said, "For even the Son of Man," that's Jesus, "did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." So what he's saying there is, you know, the kind of God that we have, he saw the dilemma of human beings. All humans have rebelled against God. They've said, I know best, I know what's best. And the chaos that results from that. And God said, okay, I'm going to do something about that. And he came into the world as Jesus of Nazareth, and he served us. And in a shocking twist, we find out our God is a servant-hearted God. And to have an attitude like Jesus, it's the willingness to, I'm willing to serve tables. Like, I am willing to be a servant. And it's no coincidence in the same chapter, Jesus said something that he says on multiple occasions in different contexts. He says, many who are first will be last, and the last first. So if you're always jockeying for position, for worldly power, dominance, whatever it is, you're going to end up really in Jesus' eyes finishing last. But if you are willing to humble yourself and be a servant of others, then you will be first in line for reward. And you're like, wow, so the last shall be first, the first shall be last. Jesus quoted it several times. And Jesus flipped the script. The podium is turned upside down under Jesus in his kingdom. So think about this. And this is one of those messages where, like, every once in a while there's like a message you're like, whoa, that's kind of a cool topic or whatever. This is not a sexy Brad Pitt type topic, okay? This is a very much like a topic for me that I kind of need to hear almost every Sunday, to be honest. You know, and that is the idea of, like, how many areas in your life are you jockeying for position? Like, really think about it. How many areas are you thinking me first and you're only thinking about yourself? How many areas of your life are you jockeying for position? At work, in your friend group, at school, you know, at home with your spouse, maybe among your siblings, fighting for attention from your parents? And Jesus says, man, if you want to be great, you have to be a servant. In God's eyes, the great ones are the servants. After the double DNF, the double did not finish, Reuben, the owner, he confronts Sonny, who is soaking his sore body in an ice tub. So now every single lady's going to run to see that scene. But Reuben says, hey, do you think I brought you onto this team to make my other driver quit? Insert cool accent. And Sonny says, hey, listen, he's cocky, he's arrogant, he's got a lot to learn. And Reuben laughs, you're cocky, you're arrogant, you had a lot to learn. Sonny tells Reuben, hey, I'm not here to hold anyone's hand. I'm here to race. Otherwise, like, I have a job to do. This is my job description, is to race. It's not to help other people with their stuff. And man, you know, I get it. Like, that is life in general. Like, so many of the things that I do require so much attention that I'm like, man, it is so hard to dig deeper and to be like, how do, in the midst of all the things that I have to do, on top of that, I figure out a way to serve others also, if that's not happening within the job description. And it takes work, man, going the extra mile to serve and invest in others. This has happened in the NFL many times, if you've noticed. The one that steps out in my mind the most is back in the day when Brett Favre, who doesn't even know how to say his own name correctly, the consonants are flip-flopped. You're like, spell your name right, dude. All right, you gunslinger. F-A-V-R-E is Favre. All right? Fee the movie. Like, you know what I'm saying? So anyways, he was the quarterback, QB1 for the Green Bay Packers, and they drafted in the first round. Who did they draft? Aaron Rodgers. Aaron. And so they draft Aaron first round, and funny, this happened to Aaron Rodgers when he was a veteran QB1. The Packers, who did they draft as a surprise to Aaron Rodgers? Come on, I was loving the service. Jordan Love, thank you, okay? And so, anyways, all reports are from back in the day that when they drafted Aaron Rodgers, Favre was like, cool, I'm not helping him, you know? And that's what everybody always talked about. And he was asked about it in interviews all the time. And I watched an interview with Favre where he basically said, man, I never felt threatened. And in the interview, he started real like, oh, shucks, yeah, I don't have anything against Aaron Rodgers. But the more the guy just kind of gently kept asking questions about his unwillingness to mentor in any way Aaron Rodgers, the more you could just see the vein coming out of Brett Favre's forehead. Like, I don't need to be anybody's mentor, man. Like he's drinking a McDonald's milkshake. That vein just popping out of his forehead, you know. And so he said this. He said, I've never felt threatened. He said, I don't know that a starter's paid to be a mentor. I don't have to give him any insights into what I do or don't do. As a starter, my job is hard enough to win ball games and be a leader. He said, you're not a babysitter. That nowhere does it say that you have to take the guy under your wing and teach him the ropes. You don't have to do anything. And I'll be honest, Brett Favre, you know, thinking of the career that he had as a gunslinger and all the things that he did in his career, in spite of his decorated career, that's one of the things I remember most about Brett Favre's career, to be honest, you know, is honestly like that kind of selfishness, that lack of empathy for the young guy coming up under you and short-sightedness, because he said, he got drafted later, my replacement got drafted later than I thought he would. I knew one day I wouldn't be QB1 for the Green Bay Packers, but still, even though I knew one day it's going to be his job, I'm still not going to help him at all because it was so self-focused. He was like, it wasn't that he was about to take over my job, it's just that isn't my job. I don't have to do it. And that's the deal. It's so easy, but Jesus flips the script. And he's like, yeah, without Jesus leading us, without us watching his servant leadership example, we will always be jockeying for position to the detriment of our team. Like ways that our team could be advancing, and we will constantly be jockeying for position in a way that's focused on self. In fact, in the movie at one point, by the way, the Browns play the Green Bay Packers today, right? Green Bay Packers. All right, so at one point, Sonny he's having a couple of beers with this girl, Kate, the Irish accent, and she, in the movie, fictionally, she's the first ever female technical director in F1 racing. And he intends to kind of hit on her, but as far as the team goes, one of the things he wants to tell her as a veteran is like, hey, we have to modify the car. The car has some flaws, and it has to get better for us to be able to win. And so eventually, during that conversation over a beer, she tells him, I bet when you look in the mirror, you see this old school cowboy, doesn't take orders, goes his own way, a lone wolf. Well, I have news for you. Formula One is a team sport. It always was, and maybe that's why you failed at it. And so she says, what is obvious to anybody who is a racing fan, Formula One is actually a team sport. Like you picture it being just this driver who's trying to finish first. But the point is, there's a whole team. There's another driver. There's a pit crew. There's all these different people that lead in different positions. There's a person who's a technical director trying to make the car the best car it can be for racing. So team is a constant major theme in this movie. And, you know, I'll be honest, when I worked in Washington, D.C. at a great church for 8 years, otherwise 2 terms, that's how you count in D.C., 8 years, 2 terms. I was there, when we had this worship band that, was great most of the time. But every once in a while, we get a couple divas on that worship band. And some of you might know, musicians and vocalists can be divas. I don't know. Yes, okay, thank you. And usually they weren't, but we had a couple that were divas. And every once in a while, the diva spirit would take over that band, and there would be just this diva complaining about, man, I don't like the songs that worship leader's picking. I hate these songs, which is so ironic about worship songs about Jesus. I get it. There's songs that I don't prefer or whatever, but I'm not going to gripe about them a whole bunch. Don't make me play or sing this song about Jesus. So, like, oh, I hate these songs that the worship leader at the time is picking. Or a guitarist, I want to play lead on this song, not rhythm. I want to play lead guitar, or I want to sing lead. I don't want to sing harmony. Can I sing this song one time or whatever? Like, oh my gosh, the worship band is a team sport. It's not about you. You know, like that was sometimes like the message, like, and this isn't happening often, but when it does, you just want to be like, just want to shake you. Listen, but have you ever noticed Andre Frazier, who is our band director, who is playing keys today over here? Great dude, despicable taste in pro sports teams. But great dude. You see the Dallas Cowboy hat? So, but have you ever noticed, as crazy talented as he is, he does gigs every Saturday night, receptions and parties and all this stuff. Did you ever notice he doesn't sing every song every Sunday? Have you ever noticed that if you've been here a few times? Yeah. You know what's interesting is extremely talented, but Andre Frazier gives up position. Like there are people around him who also have talent, or rookies at times around him. Sometimes high schoolers around him who he gives up position and says, hey, come on, pull ahead of me, because they're capable rookies, people with great potential, or just people with a different skill set. There are weeks where he doesn't sing lead at all. There are songs where he sings background vocals. He's not above it. There are times where he doesn't even sing, doesn't even have a microphone. He's playing bass because somebody needs to. Or he's playing keys. Or drums. Every once in a while, you're like, oh, Andre isn't here today. And then you're like, oh, he's hiding in the pit back here. Which, especially with a giant junior mix box, no one can see who's back there, you know. Right now, we have high school girl Mia, who no one even sees her because she's behind a size of junior mints that I really want next time I go to Cinemark. Those are the size of human heads. But that's a good leader. Andre Frazier is the kind of leader who says, I'll serve tables, I'm not above it. And that's what Jesus says is greatness. You are willing to give up position and let other people also develop. You know, at school, instead, what Jesus means by the first shall be last, last shall be first, and all that, is at school, instead of fighting for attention, celebrate the wins of other people around you. Like if I could do school again, which everybody wishes they could, one, this time I might get a date. Secondly, I would be like, I know the hint. The secret to popularity, not that that's what high school is all about. The secret to popularity is I would actually be encouraging to people. Instead of just trying to get people to point out what's great about me, I would go through it again, and I'd be like, I'm just going to find things that I actually like about people and tell them, you're the best at that. You're really great at this. I think you have potential at this. I'd kill it in high school, and I would make people feel so great around me. And that's basically what Jesus is saying. The last shall be first. In your friendships, Jesus is saying, be the type of friend who chooses to listen and to encourage. Instead of always pushing for your way, defer. Yield without pouting or complaining. Be that kind of friend. At church or in life, serve in some unnoticed ways that set other people up for success. Whether at church, it could be on the cleaning team, or it could be on the mowing team. It could be investing in kids or in students, ways that a lot of times are largely unnoticed because God says, man, it's those hidden servants who are first in line for a reward. And true leaders, honestly, are servants first. Like this originally came from Jesus. He didn't coin the phrase servant leader, but he described it unabashedly. Comes from Jesus. It comes from this chapter and also John 13 where he washes the disciples' feet. He's a servant leader. And so true leaders are servants first, and they put other people's growth and other people's well-being ahead of their own personal gain. That is a servant leader, and it applies to business and education and organizations. When I was an intern right after college, when I was 22 years old, I went to a church in Louisville, Kentucky, that at the time was like 11,000 people, and it was this great honor to be chosen as one of the many interns. Now they're like 23,000 people. And it's a great church, whatever you might think about a city and a building. It was a great church. It really was. Great, humble leaders. But one of the things they taught leaders who were new leaders in any area, whether they were volunteer, whether they're on staff, they had this motto that I learned actually I learned even earlier in college by visiting there once, that when you are a leader, a servant leader's motto is, I am the example, not the exception. Think about that in leadership. Like, most of us would love to have a boss who's like, I am an example, not the exception. Like, you guys do that. I don't have to do that stuff anymore. I'm above that now. And Jesus is like, no, man, if you want to be great in my kingdom, you have to be a servant. And a real leader says, I will go first, and then maybe people will see me and be inspired by my hard work and realize this is what servant leadership is. In their second race together in Hungary, Sonny makes several clever sacrifices during a race. This is still very early in the film, by the way, so not much of spoilers in this sermon. He makes several clever sacrifices. He does things throughout this race that make him look like he's rusty because he hasn't raced an F1 in so long. He looks like some old dumb dude who keeps making dumb mistakes like, have you forgotten how to do F1 racing? And he keeps making these little mistakes, and even it takes a second as a watcher of the movie to be like, oh, he's not accidentally doing this. He's not an idiot, although he makes himself look like one. He's setting his teammate, Joshua, up to win. He's trying to move Joshua forward in the positioning. And so Joshua ends up finishing 10th and scoring the team's first ever points by being in the top 10. And soon after that second race, Sonny calls Reuben one night. Sonny's up late, and he calls Reuben. Reuben answers the phone as if he's been awakened. And he says, Reuben says, do you know what time it is? And Sonny, Brad Pitt, says, all right, tell me about the kid. He's finally ready. He's invested. What's this kid's story? Where'd he come from? Who is he? Tell me about the kid. Tell me a little bit about Aaron Rodgers. Okay? That's kind of what's happening here. And so, not even halfway through the movie, in a strategy session, kind of pre-race, right before the third race that they're going to be in together, they're sitting down for this pre-race strategy session. And Sonny, Brad Pitt, says, for 3 weeks since the last race, all the talk has been about how reckless I am because of the ways he made himself look stupid in that race. He said, everyone's wondering if I'm going to drive him off track, which means no one will be watching out for him. And he looks at Joshua, the young guy, and he says, today, you win this race. And so things are starting to change. The culture is starting to change, that now Sonny's character is starting to see how he can serve the team and the young guy by setting him up to fail. So during that race, Sonny lets Joshua follow him at one moment. Veteran lets rookie follow him for a moment and to pick up his slipstream, and then he allows Joshua to slingshot past him into second place and give him an opportunity to go for the win in this race. And that's something that Sonny would have never done early in the film, because remember what he said, don't ask me to give up position. And here he gives up position. This is what's best for him. This is what's best for the team as a whole. I am willing to give up position. And he chooses self-sacrifice over self-promotion for the good of Joshua, good of the team. He embodies right there the paradox, the last shall be first, the first shall be last. If you want to be great, then you have to be a servant. And this is literally one of the things that we say our church is about, helping people win. What does that mean? It means serving the community and serving others in a way that they win at their marriages. Serving people in a way that they win in their businesses and their jobs, because somehow they've actually learned helpful principles of leadership at a church. It's setting people up to win if they're parents at being a parent. Setting people up to win in so many ways, and especially, number one, helping people win spiritually. Like, that's what we want to do, is give people an opportunity to grow, and that takes sacrifice from people at Momentum to set people up to win in those ways. You know, one of the biggest applications for this movie, to be honest, the last one I'll give, is the biggest obstacle to an amazing, successful marriage, for those who are married or might be married one day, the biggest obstacle in any amazing, successful marriage is each spouse's radical selfishness. Across the board, okay? Sure, there are some sweet people in the world, but the problem in any marriage is both people having to deal with their radical selfishness. I want what I want. I want to be first. I want things to serve my needs. That's what this marriage is for, is to serve my needs. And to somehow unlearn That's not what a marriage is. And now in the 21st century, it's defined in that way. That's what it is today. But that's not what marriage instituted by God originally was for. It's not to serve your needs at all. I want what I want. I want to be first. So in light of what Jesus did on the cross, one of the teachings that comes from that in Ephesians chapter 5, it's why I got this tattoo. It's not true. It's not true. I got it because I love Five Guys. Ephesians 5, Paul, a Christian named Paul, is writing, and he says, hey, in light of what Jesus did on the cross for us in verse 1, we should live a life of love. And one of the applications comes later in the chapter, says this, verse 21, submit to one another out of reverence or respect for Christ. Like what he did for us, we should be doing that for others. Verse 22, wives, submit yourselves to your husbands as you do to the Lord. Verse 25, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, the church. Okay, so I've taught through this passage at length before. I'm just going to do a flyby in this version. But basically what it's saying in this passage is, men, you have to be willing to lay down your life for your wife. Like, I want you to love your wife the way Jesus loved the church. What did he do? He died for the church. Okay, so one, literally be willing to lay down your life for your wife in a situation, but more importantly, to daily die for her and for her dreams, for her desires, for the things that she wants. So a tough question to ask for men is, men, what is life to you? You know, what is life? Man, it's sports, it's work, it's music, it's fitness, it's camping, it's tinkering with stuff in the garage. Okay, so whatever life is for you, put her before that. That's what he says. In light of what Jesus did on the cross for us, this is what a Christian marriage is. This is what it looks like. And so that's what he's asking. Ladies, on the other hand, God wants you to place your husband's hopes, dreams, desires ahead of your own. Not because your husband expects it, commands it, demands it, or anything like that. But it's in light of what Jesus did for us on the cross. And so now, wives, you might be thinking, okay, of all men not worth submitting to, or whatever. Like, I got a spasm in my neck, or whatever. But I did an actual survey to find this out. Check this out. 100% of men are not worth submitting to. 100% of them aren't worth submitting to or whatever, okay? So, has there been men in the church and outside of the church who have weaponized the word submission? 100%. Absolutely. Absolutely. So here's my advice. Don't marry a man who weaponizes the word submission. Don't marry a man who does that. Newsflash, that's not Christ-like. That's authoritarian. It's not servant leadership, which is lay down your life for the people that you love, that you serve. And so marry a man who will lay down his life for you daily in the small things and the big things. And remember verse 21. This is all in the context here. We're commanded, submit to one another because of what Jesus did on the cross for us. So otherwise, this is the point. In a Christ-centered marriage, both spouses are racing to the back of the line. It's a submission competition. That's what a marriage is. And this is what a marriage, a good, healthy, successful marriage look like. It's a constant, you go first, sweetie. No, I insist. You go first. You go first, sweetie. I insist you go first. That's what it is. For anybody that's been around here for a little while, it's two of the sweetest people at Momentum, Leah Peterson and Crystal Speth, trying to go through a door. Okay? You go first. No, sweetie, you go first. No, I insist. I just have to let you go. I wouldn't feel right. I would feel guilty all week if I went first. You just go first. I couldn't do it. You're just the best. You're like above the best, though. That's what a marriage should look like. Leah and Crystal. But really, it should be like this. A Christian wife says, man, I want you to get a night out with your dudes. You haven't gone out with the guys in a little while. And he's like, no, you need a night with the ladies. Yeah, you really need to get a night with the ladies. Or, hey, let's save up some cash so we can upgrade your vehicle. Your vehicle needs upgraded quicker than mine does, for sure. Or let's remodel the bathroom. You've been wanting to remodel the bathroom. No, we need to start saving up money, honey, because you've been wanting your master's degree. We need to do that first. That's more of a priority than remodeling the bathroom. Or the wife says, I want to watch the football game with you tonight. And the husband says, no, I insist that we watch The Notebook again. Again. Is that not the dream marriage? Now, it sounds ridiculous. I'm making it cartoonish. But that's what a good, successful marriage looks like, that's Christ-like. It is, and Paul says at the end of that chapter, there's a mystery here. The two in a marriage become one. Marriage is a team sport. F1's a team sport. Marriage it's not about you and your needs being fulfilled. It is about you laying down your life for the other person. It is a submission competition. There's no division. There's no competing. There's no negotiating or bargaining. Hey, I did this thing for you. Now you got to have sex with me. That kind of stuff. That's not what a marriage looks like. It's not jockeying for a position. It is constantly giving up position. It's constantly saying, I love you and I want your desires to be first. So I'm going to leverage all my resources, all my talents, all my gifts, all of me for what benefits you most. And I'm telling you, that kicks butt as a marriage, man. It kicks so much butt. Deferring is winning in a marriage. And at the end of the race, one of the races in the movie, at the end of one of the races, Sonny and Joshua are kind of battling for position again because it doesn't solve everything that Sonny says, hey, I'm going to set you up to win this time. There's still more process. That's how it works in life. But as they continue, there's still a race where they're battling for position, and someone on the mic, on the team, just says, someone has to sacrifice. That's what they say. Like basically, someone has to go first of saying, I want you to go first. In the tug of war, someone has to let go of the rope, not to make the other person fall down. But, someone has to let go of the rope and say, I'm done fighting for prominence. I'm done trying to be number one in this marriage, in this friendship, on the staff. Someone has to go first, and it's the same as true in marriage. Who will defer and let the other go first? I'm going to wrap up, but one of my favorite things about sports, watching college or pro sports, is every once in a while they have the shot where they show the mom or the mom and the dad of like the QB or somebody who's on the field, for football, for example, just because it's the greatest sport ever. But they'll show the mom or the dad, and sometimes it's like this tense, like, oh man, I'm so nervous for the mom more than I am the QB or whatever. Like, oh, I feel so bad. She's just wringing her hands. But the times where he succeeds or does something great and seeing the parents in the crowd is so fun. I don't want to see that during T-ball or high school sports. I don't want to see the parents at all or hear them in the stands because it's usually bad. But in pro or college sports, like, oh man, that's so cool. But could you imagine a situation where a dad or a mom is sitting out in the stands watching their NFL quarterback son, for instance, on the field, and they're just sitting there stewing in jealousy? Like, oh, how did he get to be QB1? Or the dad, man, I was a better quarterback than him. Just nobody ever noticed me. Like, oh, this kid. No, you can't ever imagine that. And that's the spirit of this, is saying we have to learn that mentality to be like Christ with kids in our community. We have to learn that mentality with our spiritual disciples at Momentum, people who look up to us spiritually. We have to learn that mentality with our professional disciples at work to be like, man, I want to set them up to succeed. I want to see them succeed and have joy in their success instead of just competing with them and saying that's not my job. I want to set them up to win. One of the guys I had the privilege to learn from is one of the pioneers of the cable television industry. His name was Bob Buford. And he's a Christian man, and a few times I spent time with him in Dallas. He was actually a disciple of Peter Drucker, the father of modern management. It was Peter Drucker, Bob Buford. Dan Smith got in that line somehow and learned some stuff from Bob Buford. But one of the things Bob Buford always said was, he said, my fruit grows on other people's trees. And man, that is such a beautiful philosophy of life. Like when I water and invest other people's lives, when they have fruit and success, I can look at that and say, that's my fruit and success. Like that's what it's all about. I set them up. I gave them what I have. The first shall be last. The last shall be first. If you want to be great, you have to be a servant. In Mark 10, when James and John first approach Jesus and they ask him, we want to sit at your right hand and your left hand, I left out how Jesus responds to that specific request. He says this, you don't know what you're asking, Jesus said. Can you drink the cup that I drink, or be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with? Now, what that means is the cup was always a metaphor in the Old Testament of the Bible before Jesus came to earth, the baby in Bethlehem. So the cup was always a symbol for God's wrath. Say some people evilly attacked God's people. They jumped them in the wilderness, and killed their people or whatever. They were like, ooh, they're going to feel the cup. They're going to receive the cup of God's wrath. And so what Jesus is saying here is, you guys want to sit at my right hand and my left hand? Can you drink the cup that I'm about to drink? Because what he's saying is, I'm about to go to the cross, and I'm about to drink the cup of God's wrath on your behalf. Like, every one of us has rebelled against God. Every one of us has given God the finger and said, I know best. I'm going to live life my way. I'll make up my own rules. I'll piece them together in my own smorgasbord of beliefs. And we've all said, God, I know what's best. And Jesus is like, for that very rebellion, I'm going to the cross to drink the cup. I'm drinking the cup of God's wrath. Can you do that? Are you going to do that? And so that's the point is, then Jesus brings it up again in verse 45. For even the Son of Man, Jesus, did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. Otherwise, when God saw our spiritual predicament, he wanted to create a possibility of us being saved from our rebellion against God by following and putting faith in Jesus. And so God looked at our predicament and did not say, hey, just don't ask me to give up position. Philippians 2 in the Bible says he gave up position in heaven to come and be a servant and to be obedient even to death on a cross, to lay down his life for our sins and drink the cup of God's wrath on our behalf. Let's pray.